This room doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the American people." With these quiet but piercing words, Barack Obama froze the East Room of the White House in stunned silence. What had begun as a carefully choreographed evening dedicated to unity spiraled into one of the most dramatic confrontations between two presidents in modern political memory. The setting could not have been more symbolic. Senators, governors, diplomats, and journalists filled the historic hall. Glasses clinked, polite laughter floated through the air, and on the surface, the evening resembled any other White House gathering. Yet tension lingered just beneath the polished smiles. Everyone knew that when Barack Obama and Donald Trump shared a stage, sparks were inevitable. The program had been promoted as an event to highlight cooperation across political lines. Even so, one aide admitted to reporters that inviting Trump and Obama to the same microphone was like putting fire and water at the same dinner table. Few could have imagined how prophetic those words would prove. When Obama rose to speak, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Applause rippled through the audience, though some guests hesitated, their eyes flicking toward Trump. Obama began with his familiar, measured cadence, reflecting on the strength of American institutions and the importance of putting country above ego. His message was not fiery but deliberate, designed to remind the room that unity required humility. "History will not measure us by how loudly we speak," he said, scanning the hall, "but by whether we listened, by whether we chose courage over chaos, unity over division." The line landed heavily. Heads nodded in agreement, though others pressed their lips tight, wary of the subtext. The target of Obama's words was unmistakable, and Trump clearly recognized it. Sitting stiffly, his fingers drummed impatiently on the table. Aides shifted nervously beside him, sensing what might come next. Then it happened. Trump shoved his chair back with a screech that cut through the room. Standing abruptly, he pointed at Obama and shouted, "Get out!" The reaction was immediate. Forks dropped, gasps spread, and journalists fumbled to capture the moment. A foreign diplomat leaned toward his neighbor and whispered, "Did he really just say that?" The very idea of a sitting president publicly ejecting his predecessor was almost unthinkable. Obama, however, did not flinch. He stood calm and immovable, hands resting lightly on the podium, his gaze fixed on Trump. The silence stretched uncomfortably as aides swarmed to their president, whispering frantic advice. Yet nothing could erase the fact that his outburst had already been broadcast to the world. Then Obama leaned toward the microphone, his voice even, almost gentle. "Mr. President," he began, "this room doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the American people." The words sliced through the chaos like glass. For a moment, even the cameras seemed to hesitate, their operators forgetting to move. Obama pressed on. "I was invited here just as you were to speak about unity. And if unity makes you this uncomfortable, perhaps that tells us more about the state of our country than anything I could ever say tonight." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some nodded, others sat frozen, but everyone understood that the evening had taken a turn no one would forget. Closing thought. The room was buzzing. Phones were already recording. Senators exchanged stunned looks, and whispers rippled through the audience. One lawmaker mouthed a single word. "Wow." Trump's face tightened, his lips pressed into a thin line. He motioned sharply to an aide, signaling to cut Obama's microphone. But staff hesitated. Silencing a former president live on national television was a line no one wanted to cross. Obama, unfazed, looked calmly at the crowd and then back to Trump. "You can ask me to leave," he said evenly, "but you cannot erase what must be said." The reaction was explosive. Applause erupted like thunder, some guests even rising to their feet. The ovation drowned out the frantic movements of Trump's aides, who were now pacing behind the scenes. Obama lifted a hand gently, urging quiet. His control over the room only made his message more powerful. "This isn't about me," he continued, his voice softening. "And it isn't about you. It's about the families across this country watching tonight. Families who want their children to grow up safe. families struggling for affordable health care, families who want to know their voices still matter. The words resonated deeply. Even those who had hesitated before now joined the applause. Trump shifted uncomfortably, his anger visible. Obama pressed on, his delivery steady, his rhythm almost like a drumbeat. "History won't remember how loudly we shouted at each other," he said. "It will remember whether we stood for something greater, whether we chose dignity over chaos, whether we built something that lasted or left only bitterness behind." The audience quieted again, not in fear but in reverence. The weight of his words filled the hall. Trump, unable to contain himself, burst out, "You're here to embarrass me. That's all this is." Obama didn't raise his voice. "I'm here to remind you that the presidency is bigger than one man's pride," he replied. "It's bigger than mine, and it's bigger than yours. Forget that truth, and we all lose." The energy in the room shifted. Even political rivals who rarely agreed with Obama were struck by the force of his calm rebuttal. Cameras zoomed in on his composed face, and social media began to light up. Millions were already reacting in real time. "You can shout all you want," Obama said quietly. "But leadership isn't measured in volume. It's measured in character." Another wave of applause surged, louder this time, drowning out Trump as he tried to respond. His face flushed, his jaw tightened. He opened his mouth, but the roar of approval swallowed his words whole. Obama let the moment breathe, then concluded, "My message tonight is simple. We cannot heal this nation by tearing one another down. We heal it by remembering that we serve something greater than ourselves." The room shook with clapping and cheers, but the confrontation was far from over. Trump, red-faced and visibly rattled, leaned over his table, gripping it hard. His eyes darted between the cameras and his rival. Then he erupted, "You think you're some kind of saint, don't you? You come in here, in my house, and act like you've got all the answers. I'm the president, not you. Not anymore. Me." Gasps spread like wildfire. Journalists scribbled furiously, trying to capture every word. Obama remained still, his silence only highlighting the fury before him. "You had your time. 8 years," Trump continued, pointing an accusing finger. "And what did we get? A mess. And now you waltz back in here like some savior. Get out." I said, "Get out." His voice grew louder, trembling with anger. Guests shifted in discomfort. Cameras zoomed in on his shaking hand. The contrast with Obama's stillness was stark. Finally, Obama spoke, his voice low but firm. "Mr. President, the White House doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the American people, and they deserve better than this display." The remark only seemed to inflame Trump further. He spun toward the audience, arms spread wide. "See this? He's humiliating me on national television. It's disgraceful." A senator looked as if he might intervene but froze, unsure. Trump slammed his hand on the table. "Security! I want him out of here!" But the Secret Service didn't move. Removing a former president from the East Room in front of rolling cameras was unthinkable. And in that hesitation, the truth became clear to everyone present. Trump's authority in his own house had fractured. Obama leaned once more toward the microphone. His tone was calm, almost sorrowful. "I'm not here to humiliate anyone," he said. "I am here because those who invited me believe this country deserves a conversation about unity, about dignity, about leadership. If that makes you uncomfortable, then perhaps the question isn't about me at all." The words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. "It's about why unity threatens you so much." The words landed like a lightning strike. Gasps filled the East Room, followed almost immediately by a rolling wave of applause that drowned out Trump's furious protests. "Sit down," Trump shouted, his voice cracking under the weight of frustration. His aides leaned in helplessly, whispering, but it was clear nothing they said would calm him. Cameras locked onto the scene. The current president, flushed and trembling, shouting, while his predecessor stood tall, collected, and steady. Respect isn't something you demand, Obama replied, his tone firm yet measured. It's something you earn. And right now, the American people are watching to see who among us understands the truth. The crowd responded instantly. The applause wasn't just polite, it was decisive, as though the audience itself had chosen a side. "This is my presidency, my event," Trump bellowed, slamming the table. "I will not be lectured by you." Obama tilted his head slightly, his calmness almost magnifying the contrast. "Your presidency, Mr. President, belongs to the people, not to you. That is the first lesson every leader should learn." The room stirred. What had begun as a formal dinner had transformed into something far larger, a contest of two visions of leadership. "I said get out!" Trump roared again, but the words rang hollow, as though he was repeating them more out of desperation than authority. Then, unexpectedly, a voice cut through the tension. A governor rose from his chair and called out, "Let him speak." Others joined in. Soon, half the room was chanting in unison, "Let him speak! Let him speak!" The chant echoed off the East Room walls, drowning Trump's protests. He froze, wide-eyed, stunned by the defiance erupting within his own White House. "This is my house, mine!" he shouted again, slamming his palm on the table. But his words were smothered by the collective voice of the crowd. The cameras captured everything: Trump's fury, the crowd's defiance, and Obama's unwavering composure. Finally, when the chant faded, a heavy silence filled the room. Every eye was fixed on Obama, waiting. He leaned into the microphone. "We are standing in the people's house," he said, his voice low but commanding. "This is not one man's stage nor one party's theater. This is the American people's house. And they," he paused, sweeping his gaze across the room, "deserve to be heard." The audience erupted again, this time unified, clapping and cheering with renewed strength. Trump, desperate, waved his arms. "Fake news," he shouted. "They'll spin this against me." A reporter shouted back, "Mr. President, no one has to spin anything. The cameras are live." Laughter broke out, sharp and biting. The moment cut deeper than any insult. Obama seized the silence. "No one came here tonight to watch two men scream at each other. They came because they believe this country can still rise above division. They believe we can sit at the same table, disagree, and still find a way forward." He gestured toward Trump. Leadership is not about volume. It's about vision. You can dominate a room with anger, or you can guide it with dignity. One of those choices fades, the other lasts. The message struck home. Social media exploded, declaring that Obama had turned Trump's stage into his classroom. Trump clenched his fists, pacing back and forth. "This is a setup. You're all against me." But the room no longer echoed him. Guests exchanged glances, some shaking their heads. "He's unraveling," a senator whispered. Obama didn't mock, didn't gloat. He let the tension breathe, then spoke again, voice steady and sharp. "Anger is easy, blame is easy, but when the anger fades, what will you have left? What will history remember? That you shouted the loudest, or that you rose above it?" For the first time, even Trump fell silent. The cameras zoomed in. Obama, calm and immovable. Trump, cornered and visibly rattled. The balance of energy in the room had shifted entirely. A reporter called out, "Mr. Obama, what do you say to those who believe unity is impossible under this administration?" Without hesitation, Obama answered, "Unity is never impossible. It is only difficult, and difficult things are always worth fighting for." The audience applauded again. Trump muttered, but his words were drowned out. Obama paused, letting the moment settle, then delivered a line that echoed like a verdict. "The presidency is not a crown. It is a responsibility. And responsibility sometimes means hearing what you'd rather not hear." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Everyone knew they were witnessing something unforgettable. The audience leaned forward, drawn toward Obama's calm presence as Trump struck the table with his fist. "You're not president anymore, Barack," he barked, his voice echoing in the East Room. Obama didn't waver. "And yet I'm here," he replied evenly, "because Americans still believe in dignity, in dialogue, and in decency." Trump's expression hardened, his anger rising. "Don't stand there and preach to me. I rebuilt this nation. You left it in ruins." Obama shook his head. "Real strength isn't in pounding a desk or raising your voice. It's in whether you lift people up or drag them down. And right now, what this country sees is a leader who mistakes intimidation for leadership." The words drew an audible gasp. Trump turned away from him, appealing instead to the crowd. "He's insulting the office," he shouted. From the audience came a sharp reply. "Respect has to be earned." The comment rippled through the room, sparking murmurs of agreement. Obama leaned slightly into the microphone. "I carried this office for 8 years, he said, his tone heavy with experience. "I know the weight of it, the sleepless nights, the isolation, but you cannot govern if you're ruled by your temper. You cannot bring people together if every critique feels like a threat. Leadership demands humility. It demands patience." The room had gone completely silent. Trump muttered bitterly into the microphone. "You think you're flawless?" Obama shook his head. "Far from it. I made mistakes, many. But a leader isn't judged by whether he errs. He's judged by whether he learns. And a nation isn't judged by its quarrels, but by whether it can rise above them." The words hung in the air, unshakable. Suddenly, Trump shoved back his chair with a screech. "Enough! This ends now! I won't let you humiliate me." But the Secret Service remained still. No one moved. Obama leaned forward again, his tone calm but cutting. "With respect, Mr. President, the people watching tonight aren't evaluating me. They're evaluating you. And tomorrow they won't ask, 'What did Obama say?' They'll ask, 'How did Trump respond?'" Gasps swept across the room. Trump froze, his anger twisting in silence. "The people aren't judging me," Obama added softly. "They're judging you." He lifted a glass of water, took a slow sip, and then said, "The presidency is temporary. Character is forever." The East Room erupted. Applause thundered, guests rose to their feet, and the roar nearly shook the chandeliers. Trump clenched his fists, desperate for control, but it had already slipped away. Then Obama delivered the line that would be replayed endlessly. "Mr. President, you can order me to leave, but history will remember who spoke truth and who tried to bury it." For a heartbeat, silence swallowed the room. Trump's jaw locked, his body rigid, but he had no reply. And that silence, captured by every camera, roared louder than his earlier shouting. Moments later, the room exploded into cheers once more. Students raised their phones high, recording. Senators pounded the tables. A governor whispered, "That sentence will be quoted for generations." Trump waved his arms frantically. "Fake! All fake!" he cried. But his protests were drowned out. The applause had already sealed the moment. When the noise subsided, Obama spoke again, his voice measured but piercing. "This country deserves better than shouting contests. It deserves leaders who can argue without trying to erase one another. America is not one man, not one party, not one election. It is the people. And the people are watching." The cameras caught the crowd glancing toward them, aware that millions were tuned in. Trump shouted orders, but neither his aides nor the Secret Service moved. Authority had slipped from his hands. "You could feel the ground shifting beneath us," one governor whispered. "We all knew this was history." Trump struck the table again, shouting hoarsely, "Disgrace! This is a disgrace!" But his fury felt diminished, overshadowed. Obama looked straight into the lenses. "Do not let anger speak louder than hope. Do not let fear drown out your voice. And never allow anyone to tell you that decency is weakness." The audience leapt to their feet, clapping like thunder. For many, it felt less like a political event and more like a reckoning. A journalist scribbled quickly, "This wasn't a speech, it was a judgment." Trump muttered, but his words vanished into the roar. Obama folded his hands, stepping back, composed. The verdict of the night was clear. "I'll step down when I've finished my remarks," Obama said quietly, his voice carrying above the noise. "And when history looks back, it won't remember who shouted the loudest. It will remember who chose to stand with dignity." The East Room erupted. Applause thundered like an earthquake, rolling through the hall. But even as the ovation shook the room, the clash had already spilled far beyond the White House walls. Within minutes, headlines and live tickers lit up television screens. CNN's Chiron blared, "Trump orders Obama out. Obama's response stuns room." MSNBC looped the moment of calm defiance. Fox News rushed to panel debates, framing the incident as a breach of decorum. Online, the story was spreading even faster. On Twitter, hashtags like "Yodia Get Out Moment" and "Decency is Strength" rocketed to the top of global trends. A student's shaky phone video collected millions of views in hours. TikTok flooded with edits, memes, and remixes. Reporters scribbled furiously as one analyst summed it up on live TV. Obama didn't just dominate that room. He claimed the narrative. Attempts from Trump's allies to spin the confrontation as disrespect quickly drowned under viral clips of Obama's line. History will remember who told the truth and who tried to silence it. The phrase was soon printed on T-shirts, painted into street murals, and quoted by commentators across the spectrum. Inside the White House, staffers knew the damage was done. "We lost the night," one aide admitted. As Trump paced furiously behind the scenes, railing about betrayal and rigged coverage, Obama left the stage with a wave and a handshake. "I've said what needed to be said," he told reporters later. "Now it's up to the American people." That brief statement only magnified his composure. By midnight, the confrontation was everywhere. Late-night comedians crafted punchlines. The Daily Show paired clips of Trump's outburst with Obama calmly sipping water. Saturday Night Live writers raced to parody the exchange. Even Jimmy Fallon quipped that it was the first time Americans wished a politician would keep talking. For ordinary citizens, though, it wasn't about comedy. It was about contrast. The moment laid bare the difference between rage and restraint, between volume and vision. At the White House, Trump's communications team scrambled, holding emergency sessions to reclaim control of the story. Trump himself jumped on Twitter. "Obama disrespected the presidency tonight. A disgrace. Fake media won't show it." Fox repeated his line. CNN, CNBC, and MSNBC framed Obama's remarks as an act of statesmanship. The coverage tilted against Trump. Republican strategists whispered uneasily, "You can't outspin calm dignity." Meanwhile, Democrats seized the moment, blasting out fundraising emails and selling merchandise emblazoned with Obama's words. Obama stayed silent, letting the footage speak for itself. Analysts compared his restraint to Muhammad Ali's rope-a-dope strategy, standing steady while his opponent exhausted himself. Trump, unable to let it go, ranted at rallies about betrayal and disrespect. But even supporters seemed subdued. The viral contrast between his shouting and Obama's calm left a lasting imprint. Talk radio debated. Podcasts dissected every line. Memes split screens. One man yelling, the other unflappable. Historians speculated that with a single exchange, Obama may have cemented his post-presidency legacy. Polls soon reflected the fallout. Independents sharply disapproved of Trump's temperament, while 62% of respondents said Obama had appeared more presidential. Activists launched new grassroots efforts under banners like "Dignity First." Civil rights leaders invoked Obama's words as a call for justice. Trump's team tried damage control with selectively edited clips, but fact-checkers quickly debunked them. Abroad, European leaders praised Obama's composure. Russian media painted the clash as evidence of American division. Families argued at dinner tables. Pastors cited Obama's line in Sunday sermons. Offices buzzed with debates. The fight for the narrative consumed the nation, But Obama never re-entered it. His silence made his words echo louder. Trump kept shouting, but the more he did, the clearer the contrast became. His volume read as chaos. Obama's stillness registered as strength. In the end, the clash transcended politics. It became a parable. True power, Americans reflected, doesn't always shout. Respect is not seized through anger. It is earned through composure, patience, and courage. Two men had faced off in the East Room. One raged, the other remained steady. And the country was left to ask itself, what kind of leadership do we truly want? Obama didn't flinch. Instead, he delivered a line so sharp and composed that it shifted the entire room against Trump. That evening, the East Room of the White House was packed with senators, governors, foreign diplomats, and reporters. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Washington had seen its share of political theater, but this gathering felt different. Something consequential was brewing. On one side of the room, Barack Obama stood ready, calm and collected, his trademark composure unshaken. At the long table sat Donald Trump, stiff-backed, his aides clustered nervously around him. Cameras were trained on every movement, every glance. Whenever these two men occupied the same space, tension was expected. Still, no one predicted the night would unravel into one of the most dramatic confrontations in the history of the White House. The occasion had been billed as Unity Night, an evening of bipartisan speeches meant to highlight cooperation. The irony wasn't lost on those present. As one staffer quipped under their breath, calling this Unity Night is like asking fire and water to shake hands. At first, things appeared calm. Dinner conversation bubbled with polite laughter and the clink of glassware. But beneath the surface, nerves rattled. Reporters hammered at their keyboards, their eyes darting constantly between Obama and Trump, waiting for sparks. The moment arrived when Obama rose to speak. A ripple of applause swept through the room, though some guests hesitated, glancing toward Trump for cues. Obama began in his deliberate, measured rhythm, a cadence familiar to anyone who had followed his presidency. He spoke of the resilience of American institutions, of putting the country ahead of ego, of the importance of humility in moments of power. His voice was steady, confident, but not boastful. "History will not judge us by how loudly we speak," Obama said, sweeping his gaze across the hall, "but by whether we chose to listen, by whether we summoned courage over chaos, unity over division." Heads nodded. Some smiled faintly. Others pressed their lips tight, reading between the lines. The message was clear, and so was its intended target. Trump shifted uncomfortably, drumming his fingers against the table. His aides exchanged uneasy glances. Obama continued, his tone sharpening slightly. "This nation is greater than one man's pride. It is stronger than any single personality. And it will endure, as long as we remember that truth." The air thickened. Reporters leaned in. Senators and governors straightened in their chairs, bracing for what might follow. Suddenly, Trump pushed back his chair with a piercing screech that echoed off the marble floors. He stood abruptly, pointed directly at Obama, and barked, "Get out!" The room froze. Forks dropped. Gasps spread like wildfire. Journalists scrambled to capture the moment. A diplomat whispered, stunned, "Did he really just say that?" Obama didn't move. He stood tall at the podium, his expression unchanged. The silence that followed stretched unnervingly, commanding the room without him saying a single word. Trump's aides rushed to his side, whispering frantically, trying to contain the fallout. Staffers attempted to calm the guests, but the damage was done. The president's outburst was already etched onto the cameras, broadcast live for the world to see. Unity Night had just been rewritten into something else entirely. And then came Obama's reply. He leaned slightly toward the microphone, his tone low, steady, almost tender. "Mr. President," he said, eyes fixed on Trump, "this room does not belong to you. It belongs to the American people." A silence so sharp it was almost physical descended over the hall. Even a cameraman lowered his equipment, stunned. Obama continued, his voice cutting through the tension. I was invited here, as you were, to speak about unity. And if the idea of unity makes you this uneasy, then maybe it says more about where we are as a nation than anything I could say tonight. The words sliced through the room. Murmurs spread immediately. A senator mouthed, "Wow." Students in the back, phones already raised, whispered excitedly as they recorded. Trump's lips pressed into a hard line. He gestured angrily toward his aides to cut the microphone. But the staff hesitated. Silencing a former president on live television was a step no one dared to take. The standoff had just begun. Obama scanned the hall, then fixed his gaze back on Trump. "You can demand that I leave," he said evenly, "but you cannot erase the words that need to be spoken." The response was immediate. Applause erupted like thunder, swelling until some guests rose to their feet. The roar nearly drowned out Trump's aides, who were darting back and forth in a panic. With a subtle lift of his hand, Obama signaled for calm. The gesture, quiet but assured, only amplified the gravity of what came next. "This isn't about me," he continued, softening his tone. "And it isn't about you either. It's about every American family watching tonight. Families tired of seeing politics turned into a grudge match. Families who want their children to grow up safe, who want healthcare they can afford, and who want their voices to matter." The ovation swelled again, even from guests who had hesitated before. Trump shifted angrily in his seat, his fury visible. Obama leaned closer to the microphone. "The truth, Mr. President, is that history will not remember how loudly we shouted at each other. It will remember whether we rose to the moment, whether we chose dignity over chaos, whether we built something lasting or left behind nothing but bitterness." The room grew still, not with fear but with respect. The words landed like steady blows on a drum. "You're here to embarrass me," Trump suddenly roared, his voice cracking. "That's all this is." Obama's expression didn't change. "I'm here to remind you that the presidency is larger than any one man's pride," he said firmly. "It's bigger than my pride and bigger than yours. And the moment we forget that, the nation loses." The room buzzed with electricity. Even political rivals who rarely praised Obama felt the force of his delivery. He hadn't raised his voice or resorted to insults, yet his words carried weight like stone. Cameras zoomed in on his calm face. Online, millions were already reacting. Trump's own aides looked torn, caught between loyalty and unease. Obama adjusted the microphone and added, "You can yell as much as you want, but leadership is not measured in decibels, it is measured in character." The applause surged once more, louder than before. Trump's face flushed red, his jaw locked. He tried to interject, but the cheering swallowed his words whole. Obama waited for the noise to fade. "My message tonight is simple," he said. "We do not heal this country by tearing one another down. We heal it by remembering that each of us serves something greater than ourselves." The words echoed through the room, a challenge no one could ignore. But the confrontation wasn't finished. The applause had barely died when Trump lunged forward, gripping the table so hard his knuckles whitened. His face was flushed, his eyes darting between the cameras and Obama. "You think you're some kind of saint, don't you?" he bellowed. "You come in here, into my house, acting like you've got all the answers. I'm the president, not you, not anymore. Me." Gasps swept across the audience. Reporters scribbled frantically. Obama, motionless, simply watched. His silence made Trump's rage look even sharper. "You had your time. 8 years," Trump continued, jabbing a finger toward him. "And what did we get? A disaster. Now you march back in here like some kind of savior. Get out. Do you hear me? Get out." He repeated it louder, his voice strained, his hands trembling. Guests shifted in their seats uncomfortably. "This is madness," someone muttered under their breath. Cameras captured every detail: Trump's shaking hand, Obama's unyielding composure. Finally, Obama broke the silence. His words were quiet but edged with steel. "Mr. President, the White House is not your property, It belongs to the American people, and they deserve far better than this display. Trump whirled toward the audience, throwing his arms wide. See this? He's humiliating me on live television. It's disgraceful. A senator half rose, unsure whether to intervene. Trump slammed his palm onto the table. Security, get him out of here. But the Secret Service didn't move. No one did. Removing a former president live on camera was unimaginable. And in that hesitation, the balance of power in the room shifted unmistakably. The atmosphere shifted palpably. Everyone could sense it. Trump no longer commanded the room. His authority had cracked, and the crowd knew it. Obama leaned toward the microphone, his tone even but resolute. I am not here to embarrass anyone, he said. I am here because those who invited me believe this country deserves a conversation about unity, about dignity, about leadership, and if that unsettles you, then perhaps the real question isn't about me. It's about why unity feels so threatening to you. Gasps rippled across the hall, followed by a swell of applause so loud it smothered Trump's protests. Sit down, Trump barked, his voice breaking. His aides hovered helplessly whispering, but he seemed beyond control. Obama straightened, unbothered, while cameras zoomed in on the furious, red-faced president on one side and the calm, unyielding former president on the other. Respect, Obama continued, his voice firm yet gentle, is never something you can demand. It has to be earned. And right now, the American people are watching to see which of us understands that truth. The applause swelled again, louder this time, as if the audience had made its choice. This is my presidency, my event, Trump shouted. I won't be lectured by you. Obama tilted his head slightly, almost with pity. Your presidency, Mr. President, doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the American people. That is the first lesson every leader must learn. The crowd stirred. This was no longer a dinner. It had become an open confrontation between two entirely different visions of leadership. Trump slammed the table. I said, get out! But the words sounded strained, hollow, more desperate than authoritative. Then a voice from the back cut through the tension. A governor stood and shouted, let him speak! Others picked up the call. Soon half the room was chanting in unison. Let him speak! Let him speak! Trump froze, stunned by the defiance. His face reddened further as he slammed his palm onto the table. This is my house, mine, he barked. But the chant only grew, drowning him out. Cameras captured everything. Trump raging, the crowd defying him, and Obama waiting calmly, unshaken, as steady as stone. When at last the chant subsided, silence blanketed the East Room. Every guest leaned in, waiting. Obama broke it with deliberate calm. We are standing in the people's house, he said, his voice clear. This is not one man's stage. It is not one party's theater. This is the people's house, and the people, he paused, sweeping his gaze across the crowd, deserve to be heard. The room erupted again, louder and more unified than before. Applause, cheers, and shouts filled the space. Trump waved his arms frantically. Fake news, he cried. They'll twist this. But a journalist shouted back, Mr. President, no one has to twist anything. The cameras are live. The crowd burst into sharp laughter, laughter that cut deeper than any insult. Sensing the moment, Obama pressed forward. No one came here tonight hoping to see two men screaming at one another. They came because they still believe this country can be more than division. They believe we can share a table, disagree, and still find a path forward. He gestured subtly toward Trump. Because leadership is not about anger. It is about vision.